Hi, we're on a trip. We haven't moved to a theatre. We're in a motel, or sort of the closest Britain gets to motels. They're not like the ones in Schitt's Creek with the doors directly out onto the car park. They're more like sort of cheap chain hotels, I suppose.
Not that cheap.
No, not that cheap.
Not these days.
Yes, so we've stopped over on our way from home to somewhere else. So we're in a place north of England near Carlisle. It's, I don't know, I guess it's a sort of a transit place. There's we're close to the motorway. There's an industrial estate and a retail park. And I curiously like all that kind of thing. I just like those kind of places where you can hear the comforting hum of traffic while you sleep. Although this one was a little bit desolate. I think when we arrived we thought it was, because we'd sort of parked at the back and there were hardly any signs. It looked like the bit in a post-apocalyptic or zombie show where the survivors arrive at a high school and it's deserted and it's going to be safe, or is it? Anyway, yes, so stop over. I'll make some little clips as we go. Oh yes, also, just to help locate us, we're kind of near one end of Hadrian's Wall, if that helps. Any Roman centurions among the subscribers who can figure out where that is. Bookish stuff. Last night read a novella by Simon Clarke, Case of the Bedevilled Poet, a Sherlock Holmes Enigma. This was a lovely gift from Dave Pasesky, and he kindly got it signed as well. And I've read a lot of Simon Clarke over the years, but this I thought is probably the most powerful piece I've read by him. It's a novella from 2017, published by Newcon Press. I'd call it psychological horror. It's set in World War II, and the protagonist, it suddenly seems as if all sorts of random people are seeking to attack him. It's like as soon as they see him, they hate him. And even like characters on a cinema screen are sort of suddenly looking at him and saying hateful words. So obviously he's terrified, and he runs into two old fellas in a pub who claim to be Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. But this is World War II and they're characters in Conan Doyle stories, so how can that be? But he's so desperate he agrees to let them help him. And it's great. I think the wartime setting's really well done. There's some scary moments. It's really the twin mysteries of what's happening to this guy and who can these Holmes and Watson people be. Even what are Holmes and Watson? All of that. So yeah, a lot going on. Simon Clarke, Case of the Bedevilled Poet. Moving on to Man from U.N.C.L.E., The Vampire Affair. Part of my Occult Detective October reading. So good stuff. Back in a bit when we've moved. Oh, I was going to say about this motel. This particular chain, their branding is heavily purple, like the bits of curtain and all this stuff. Everything purple. And I happen to be wearing a jumper in exactly the same colour as their corporate colour. So I've been avoiding the foyer in case people ask me to help them check in or whatever. And Jenny's got a corporate colour drinking flask. Special shout out to this hallucinogenic artwork that you get in the room. You must have seen this same picture 1,000 times. So here we are, ensconced in a self-catering place, and it's been raining really heavily. It's actually not raining at the moment, so outside does look a bit wet and wild, but we don't mind because we're comfortable in here with a fire stove thing. What do you call them?
Wood burner.
A wood burner, yes.
The biggest wood burner I'd ever seen.
Yes, it's pretty fierce.
We call it the behemoth.
And as most self-catering places do, comes with the random selection of books. Got some cookery books. Alice B. Toklas, isn't that more like an art thing? I'll have to check that out. I think that's all like
something to do with Gertrude Stein.
an olive in a man's hat kind of stuff. A book about Primo Levi, some walking stuff. Rohinton Mystery, I think Jenny's read some of him. Yeah, so some bits and pieces, but the things I found were, let's see. Oh, it'd be easier if I relocate to show you these. So yes, from the shelves of the place we're staying, really pleased with this, Scottish Border Country. It's a guidebook from 1951 about the area that we're in. So this is the sort of thing I would tend to try and find and buy when we're out and about. Beautiful cover painting by Brian Cook, who I've googled him, and apparently he painted in watercolours, but they used a very a printing technique that could produce 14 different colours from 4 printer colours by a sort of process of the pigments overlaying each other. So that looks interesting, and like I say, I like old guidebooks, although they might be practically slightly less useful. Hidden behind the other books was a cowboy romance, a cowboy and his neighbour, who appears to be a horse. Best friends and neighbours shouldn't share a kiss.
I hope it's not a horse.
No. Can best friends and next door neighbours Seth and Jenna navigate their rocky pasts to find a future happy ever after together?
Let's hope they can.
I think so.
I hope they can.
And a candlelit Regency romance. There's a Mills and Boon 2-in-1 book by Louise Allen, and I actually started reading one of them, his Housekeeper's Christmas Wish. Resolute bachelor Alexander Tempest accidentally collided with penniless Tess Ellery on the icy streets of Ghent, and he did his indolent best to make amends. But Tess is left stranded, so Alex is honour bound to take her home as his housekeeper. And despite his long-held rule of spending Christmas alone, Tess's warmth soon has this brooding lord determined to make all her wishes come true.
Do bodices get ripped?
They might do. They might do a bit. Yeah.
Bodies.
So, although it's Christmas, a bit early for Christmas. Although there is a celebration afoot because today is our 30th wedding anniversary.
It is.
Hooray.
For us.
Also in my own reading, I've finished the Man from U.N.C.L.E. Vampire Affair book as an Occult Detective October read. And I'm reading my final Occult Detective October book, the novelisation of Scooby-Doo the movie. Not a movie I've ever seen, and I'd have to say, staying in a remote cottage with lots of strange sounds that happen during the night, from things like beams contracting in the heat and strange plumbing and animals outside. This is probably about as scary a book as I'd want to read.
Would you have got away with it if it hadn't been for those pesky kids?
That's a myth. They never say that.
Don't they?
I don't know.
Ever?
No, they never ever said it.
Okay.
So I've made this wood burner, incredibly hot, which means I can sit here and talk to you illuminated by firelight, which I'm going to do. So it's day 4 of our holiday. We've done some tourism. We went to Galashiels, where there's something called the Great Tapestry of Scotland, which was fantastic. It's a pretty new thing. It's I should have some stills I can pop in here. Basically, they got hundreds, thousands of people across Scotland to embroider hundreds of scenes that show Scottish history from like geology through to present day. So that was awesome. Got a book about it. Also some socks. And today, driving about, we went to probably our nearest bookshop. It was a place called the Market Street Trading Company. So it was a bookshop, a cafe and a deli. And it was very lovely, and we did get books. Jenny got a poetry collection by Iona Lee, debut collection. I've sneaked a look at one of the poems, looks fantastic. I got a book called White Riot by Joe Thomas, which is a crime thriller, largely because it includes the 1978 Carnival Against Racism in Victoria Park, which I was at, so being part of a historical event, you know, it'd be great to read that through a novelist's eye, and looks really good. So what I'm actually reading is still the Regency Christmas book by Louise Allen. I'm probably getting towards the end of that. It's actually fantastic. It's like a streamlined version of Georgette Heyer with a little bit more of a sort of modern sensibility and some sex. Yeah, well played, Mills and Boon. So that was good. Also reading a non-fiction book about Cleopatra. So that's where we're at so far. Between deluges, today was quite sunny, but rain ahoy again. So have another look at that fire. Yep, still blazing away. Okay, tea and cake time. Whee, Victoria sponge. Whee, Jenny's hand. What is it?
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake. Yes, and that's a teapot. And that's the place we're at.
And that's a jug of milk.
The Eildon Hills in low cloud. Looks like Cimmeria in that poem I read.
God, yeah. Oh.
Okay, I'm downstairs in the bedroom while Jenny's doing one of her writing groups online. So just thought I'd tell you about today's little book haul. So went out, not very far, about 6 miles from where we're staying, and there was it's like a bunch of farm buildings around a courtyard that had been sort of converted. So now there's like an antique shop and a little cafe bit and a bookshop called Border Reader. So I went upstairs, looked around the books, which were great prices. I picked up a Michael Moorcock novel. Really got this because it's the cover I remember when I read it when I was a teenager. Michael Moorcock, science fiction writer. The Final Programme is one of his Jerry Cornelius series, which are a bit more sort of lit fic, really, in the end. So yes, great novel. As it says, soon to be a major film. That didn't really go terrifically well, but nice to have the book. Another Moorcock. This is Barbarians of Mars. I think it's the third in a series of Edgar Rice Burroughs pastiches he wrote in the 60s under the pseudonym Edward P. Bradbury, about a sword and planet hero called Michael Caine, Kane, which I remember as being quite fun, and again, it's a lovely book. They also had William Morris, a Ballantine adult fantasy book, The Wood Beyond the World by William Morris. So this is a Victorian novel. According to Lynn Carter, who wrote the introduction to the book, and it's part of the series of fantasy books, came out in the 70s. It was the first sort of imaginary world fantasy novel, which is debatable. One day I'll do something about Phantasmion by Sarah Coleridge, which you could say maybe that should get that accolade. Anyway, Would Be on the World, sort of a medieval type fantasy. I quite liked it. Reading too much William Morris can be a bit like trying to eat a medieval tapestry. But this is pretty good. It may or may not be better than my own copy, but I'll end up with a spare anyway. Then we were in Melrose, where I found a little tiny bookshop called The Reading Room. Felt I had to go in, felt I had to buy something, bought The Lost Bookshop, current novel, with a printing defect. The cover's too big. A bit of a strip with some registration marks and stuff there. Anyway, Eve Wood's Lost Bookshop. It'll go on my surviving read what you own pile, and there seems to be a lot of stuff about bookshops and libraries at the moment. You know, it's like they've become the imaginary world that people like to be in, or one of them anyway. So that was our day. Back in a bit. Bit of mossy tree stump action, and a peer over the wall into the secret garden. Okay, just approaching this little doorway here in this long high wall. So if there's a strange figure peering through it when I get there, that will be quite a thing to experience. Oh no. Okay. Not sure I dare go into that, but there it is, figureless, unless the figure appears on the film afterwards. Well, I did dare go in, and it's an orchard, really. Pretty big. Jenny's just gone into town to get us a takeaway for our tea of our last night, so I thought I'd get a bit of film of where we've been staying in the sort of last of the evening light. Actually been quite a nice day. So it's garden cottage of a large house. It's nice. It's got a slightly haunted feel, I would say, but who knows what that's all about. Very cosy though, and nice that it's just us here. And yeah, light on the trees. Shame it hasn't been warm enough to be outside very much. Here we see the steady hands of Dr. Jenny. 10 to 2 on the steering wheel.
I'm a 9 to 3 girl, mate.
Okay.
Only at 10 to 2, bollocks.
As we head down a valley into Dumfries and Galloway. After a slightly eventful journey, second breakfast. And we're back. So back a little bit earlier than we thought, but yeah, it's been good. All that's left now is the unpacking, but I know, nightmare.
Hate the unpacking.
But a good part of unpacking is my final book haul. So we were driving back, we drove over some sort of moorland, arrived at a Scottish town called Moffat, famous for its toffees, and among other things I went to a bookshop called the Moffat Bookshop, which is a second-hand shop, and it was fantastic. The ideal bookshop with great selection of fiction, some old collectible stuff, some science fiction shelves, poetry shelves, even a little shelf of westerns where I found Desperate Men. Desperate Men, if I'd known it was a factual book, I might not have got it, but I love the title, basically because I used to be friends with a performance art group called Desperate Men, but it's about real life outlaws like Jesse James and Butch Cassidy, but it, great title, great book. I also got a crime book by John Creasy, A Rope for the Baron.
Ah, John Creasy of ancient memory.
So I've never read a Baron book, or was the Toff him as well?
Can't remember.
Oh, well.
He wrote under about 8 names as well.
Yeah, so I like rope, I like barons, so imagine this will be good.
Is it a Baron of Beef?
J Books has a great suspense logo there, so love that. And then I got this from the science fiction fantasy area. It looks like the sort of thing I ought to know about. I've never heard of this. So the author's Sharon Green. It's J Lav, Amazon Warrior, An Oath to Mida. So the plot is a world torn asunder by strife and strangers. It's stranger danger. J-Lav, Amazon war leader of the savage Hoster clan, lay wounded on a cold battlefield. She cared for nothing save her spirit's safe flight to the bosom of Mida, patron goddess of the Midana Amazons. But such peace was not to be hers, for J-Lav was the one spoken of in the prophecy of the snows, the saviour who must travel to the glacial hell of Sigur's Peak and beyond, and without whom any mission to save the realm of Mida would surely fail.
Sounds unmissable.
Well, she's got the reduced. Well, I don't know if it's chain mail, but there's not much of it, and she rides a polar bear. A polar bear. So that looks good. Some of Fade the Gambler by Mick Farren. So Mick Farren was a musician, a journalist, a kind of counterculture figure who then became a science fiction writer, and I think his stuff's really good, or I did when I was 15 years old. So keen to see what that's like. And then one of those books, I think every library must have a copy of this to be complete. A Bionic Woman novelisation. The Bionic Woman, A Question of Life, by Maud Willis. Local ranchers believe a pet lion is responsible for the slaughter of their stock, but the animal belongs to one of Jamie's pupils. So, assisted by her super-sensitive bionic hearing, she tracks it down, but in so doing becomes involved in a battle to save the creature's life. Then, while searching for another of her pupils, Jamie unexpectedly gets caught in a scheme to steal a top-secret flying suit about to be demonstrated in the desert. But with her extraordinary bionic skills, she proves to be more than a match for the crooks. So, could be handy for next Garb August. But, best of all, 2 volumes of the Windsor magazine, so bound sets of magazines from 1904-5, like the ones I've been reading, which are a little bit earlier, that sort of illustrated general magazines from the period. So the Windsor magazine advertised itself as being dead air. The Windsor magazine, an illustrated monthly for men and women. Volume 21, December 1904 to May 1905. Featuring, among other things, Our Railways at Christmas, but also the first appearance of H. Rider Haggard's novel Aisha, the sequel to She, serialised in this publication. So, and this is a book I've not read, but I want to read, so I will actually be able to read it as it came out, and I'll be able to read, if I could start in December, read instalments as they appeared and read the whole magazine. So, delighted with these. Yes, the Windsor magazine. So that was our final thing. And then I got back to the car and found that the vicissitudes of driving across the moorlands had broken the car. So Dr. Jenny phoned the AA, and the man came and fixed the damage by banging it with a hammer.
It was great.
Yep.
Best thing I've ever seen.
It was brilliant. It was like being rescued by Thor.
It was a bit, yeah. We hadn't kind of totally broken the car.
No. Obviously, it wasn't like something out of a comedy film with just like
the car just broke in
bits and pieces lying around.
Felt like that. No, I hit a pothole rather harder than I might have wished to have done, and it bent the.
It was sort of a pot side, really.
Well, it was
missing
a pot
bit of road.
Side. Yes, I didn't hit it going very fast. But,
anyway, it could have been an ignominious end to our trip, but the fact that the AA bloke fixed it in like 10 minutes, and that was great.
Yeah, when he wielded his mighty hammer.
I mean, he explored what the fault was first. He didn't just walk. It. Which is good though, because they got this van full of like sophisticated electronic equipment, but the solution, hammer.
It's great.
Okay, so that is the end of first travel log. Thanks for watching. Back soon with something else.